Hello and welcome to the Wise Why. This morning I am joined by Crystal Gregory, a lady that I met online. And actually we met because we were both speaking at the same event. And I really find her fascinating. But as usual, the Wise Why is really not about me. It is about my guests. So straight over to you, Crystal. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Crystal, and I like to help online business owners build courses and communities. And when I'm not doing that, I really enjoy living in small town Wales and enjoy a good cup of coffee and wandering around outside.
And I love that. And you've got one of the things that I've seen since we've met is how active and supportive you are online. You know, you're always there posting out, do you want to launch a course? Do you want to launch a podcast? And of course, I've done that. But I love what you're doing with empowering other women. And of course, who better to have on the show on this particular day than you? So I wonder if you could explain a little bit about how you help female women really raise that business and go to market and raise that online presence.
Sure. A lot of women start their online business to be around family or to kind of fit in around their other commitments. And what I do is I work with them when they've reached a certain point, when they have kind of their framework. I call it their secret sauce, or their thing that they can work on really well. That, if you're a coach or consultant, it's that thing that you do all the time, those questions that you answer, that sort of core piece of knowledge. And what we do is we first identify it. And then I help my female clients to really understand how then it can elevate them in their business to be able to help more people, whether it's a course or a podcast or an app or something like that. And then they find after they've done it, it can be a challenging process because oftentimes they're overcoming a lot of mindset issues and sort of fears that their service will go down, the quality of what they do. But oftentimes the opposite happens. They find that they can help more people and that the quality of their in-depth work really helps, is much deeper and more impactful.
Brilliant, because I know that when I first started, finding that core message of what you do and everyone keeps going on about know your niche, and actually it's a little bit overwhelming when everyone's shouting at you, know your why, know your niche, and you're as a person who's trying to manage the school run, launch a business, manage the school collection, do the after school clubs. And this is what people, a lot of us, including myself, who've launched a business and mostly online, are doing. We're doing it to work around our kids because that's the life we've chosen to do. So I wondered if you could, is there a way that you can streamline? I know there isn't, but is there a nugget that you could give to somebody that could help them find that niche quickly and succinctly, or is it something that you've got to work through as a process?
Yes, and it's two things actually, that you don't have to be married to the niche, and that it doesn't have to be like I work with app developers from India to communicate more effectively with remote teams around the world. It doesn't have to be like that. It can be as simple as solving a problem for different kinds of people in different kinds of ways. And it can also be like a process-based niche. And I think that's something that we don't talk about a lot, where it's solving a problem and it's a process and it can work across different sectors and help many different types of people.
So one of the things that, I know we both do, we both empower people to actually succinctly say what they do. So I wondered, I'm trying to think how to ask this question. It's really weird, but I will be honest, it's really weird because we're so similar in what we do. It's like, oh, how do I do this? It's almost like talking to myself. Because, if I think about the process that I do with my clients, and it can sometimes feel really overwhelming, particularly the identifying your key messages course. It's like this whole process they go through. And then at the end of it, they go, that's what I do. So I wondered if you could talk about maybe the aha moments that your clients have.
Sure. And it often happens after about month 1 or month 2. After we've sort of identified what they think is sort of their core message, and we begin the course or the app project or whatever the main project is that we're building. And then they go out to test it with their current clients, or they do some listening interviews with people who might benefit from the service, and they write things down. And then I have this one exercise, I call it the legacy exercise, which I'm not sure about you, but like yourself, like I build my business around my family and around relationships and around community, because that's really important. And I wake up each day and I envision, am I living the life that I want other people to remember me by? Because life is short, and at the end of the day, money matters, but more than that, it matters the kind of impact that we make. So I have my clients go through that, and that is often a very aha moment for them, because oftentimes they think that many times it is aligned to their core framework and around to their core message, but oftentimes it's not. And so then sometimes we do have to go back and reinvent the wheel to where they really want to be, or where their course or their program needs to sit. And alternatively, we also look at adding in some purpose-based stuff into what they're doing. So
yeah, and I do, my whole ethos is so that I mean, look at the wise why. I only present the wise why during term time. I deliberately keep as much of that time, and my little one's only 7, and everything I do is to try and be with her. And I lost something that I know that I'm guilty of, is sometimes that in the afternoons there's more work that I need to do, and I need to do it, and I need to do it, and I sometimes forget to switch off the computer. Have you got any advice for anyone that can suddenly feel like the work's taken over and they're losing sight of the family life, which is the whole reason of why we do what we do?
yeah, that's so key. I think 3 things. So my clients, one of the things that we do when we start out is we do something called a time audit and time blocking. And so, because oftentimes my clients feel really stretched kind of between home and family and business and other commitments. And so we actually write down what it is that they're doing, just as the observer, not to be judgmental, but just to look and see. And then that is really key, because oftentimes they think, and I can be guilty of this too, when I sit down to do work, it's not actually the most productive work. It's what I enjoy or might be procrastinating, or but it's not actually impacting the business. And so then we go ahead and we look at sort of their activities, and we see what can be automated, what can be delegated, what can be taken out. And then I am a big fan of something called time blocking, where it's just putting in a regular rhythm into the week of, where you're fitting in marketing time, client time, and other operations and things. So then when work might take over, you can sort of come back to that center. Not as like I'm not a huge like Pomodoro. What's that one really strict technique? Like the Pomodoro method and some of the other, but just to be more gentle around it as well. But to
I
have
love that. Sorry for interrupting. I do. I love the fact that you want people to be, it's a softer version, because sometimes I tried the Pomodoro about 6 months ago, and I lasted, I remember just going click and just turning it off because I wanted to finish my task. And so it didn't work for me. So I block a day or a group to focus on something, because that works better for me. And I think the way you're talking, have you got any advice for someone like me that can get a little bit obsessed?
To take time off as well. And to also, the other key thing that I do with a lot of my clients is we create a business vision board, and we put it up behind where they're working. And I do this to this day. So the big goals that I've worked towards in my business in the last 4 years, I create like some kind of visual representation of it. I'm not a big woo person, but I am a huge believer in kind of having focus and being directed with your energy and with your time. And so then if you have that big goal, that can kind of help you to understand and to push through some of the activities that you might not enjoy so much or might not be so powerful. But that being said, I think also to kind of step back from that and to envision the big picture as well. And so I have a young family. So one of the other things I do as well is I always look at what is it like on the day that they graduate from high school, and what is it like on the day that, if they would choose to get married or not, or what are some of those bigger family events when they're an adult. And so I want to be able to kind of look through things through different lenses as well.
I think that's brilliant. I remember the second time actually, I actually designed a vision kind of poster for myself. And I had a picture of me and my husband standing there on the side of a road looking like old people. And our daughter was just striding on ahead as this strong, independent woman with the whole world ahead of her. And it was like, that's why I do everything I do, is it's for our daughter. I want her to know, because she had a bit of a rough start when she first came into the world, and I want her to know that it doesn't matter, one, if you're dyslexic and dyspraxic like me, it doesn't matter what life is thrown at you, you can succeed. And succeeding, and I don't know how you feel about this, but for me, success, as I think you mentioned it earlier, success isn't monetary.
Mm.
It is about what you leave behind. And I think you touched on this slightly earlier about it's not about money, it's about the impact you leave.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so success is money because, as one of my mentors says on a regular basis, he always reminds me that you do need money to be able to be an impact in the community and in yourself and for your family. But at the end of the day, the money isn't the most important thing. It is also purpose. It is leaving that legacy, because I know plenty of people who have really big houses. They have lots of money, but they're miserable. And at the same case, I know people who don't have much and they're also equally miserable. So a lot of what we choose to do is how we choose to live with what we have, and to make that impact. And so.
I love that you just mentioned mentors there, because
Mhm.
everyone always assumes that because you're a coach or a consultant, you don't need somebody to turn to and you don't need another voice of reason. Now, I've got my whole network of people who keep me accountable. You know, I could name them, and they're very important to me because they do pull me up, they do question what I'm doing, and they keep me on a really strong path. Could you expand a little bit more about your mentors?
Yeah, so I've been able to have a good network being in. I launched my business actually during lockdown, during in rural Wales, when I had a very small, I was living in a tiny village as a single parent. So it was really crucial for me to find a good network of people to connect with, and to who help hold me accountable and to help me to grow as well. And I really enjoy that, and it's been quite a big privilege. So.
So if you launched your business about the same time as I did in lockdown, what were you doing beforehand?
Well, I had been a teacher in my first career, and then I moved to the UK and I taught for a couple of years. And then, as I say, in the UK, became a mum. And that motherhood journey has been a very big one for personal development and for growth for myself, but also to be able to figure out what to do during a pandemic as well, and to fit life around a young child. So that's why I started the business. So.
And I think motherhood changed me. I remember the day our daughter arrived, and I remember thinking, I didn't know what I was missing. I was quite an old mum, you know, I was in 45. And it was that thing of going, I didn't know what I was missing. And I wasn't missing anything. And yet I was missing everything. That sounds really the most bizarre thing to try and explain. But our daughter completely and utterly changed my focus, my life. I went back to work and went, oh, this isn't for me. This isn't where I want to be. I don't know if you can expand a bit on your own personal changes about how motherhood really drove you forwards.
Yeah, I think for me, it's the biggest question of leaving that legacy for a young life and for a young daughter, and thinking what kind of woman I want her to be, and what kind of choices I want her to be able to have. And so for me, it's the question of being a mother and being a stay-at-home mom is a good choice for lots of people, but I'm a firm believer in the power of choice and the power of personal freedom as well. And so for me, the journey into entrepreneurship has been really that of empowerment as well, and not just for myself but for others too. And so it's been really beautiful to be able to work with one of my early clients, and one of my favorite ones was a bookkeeping agency from the States, and they worked exclusively with stay-at-home moms to find work during the pandemic and then beyond. And so we worked together to grow their agency and to be able to help them to provide more employment and provide more opportunities, but around family as well.
Brilliant. What's your favorite part of your, I mean, this is a question that we don't normally ask, but what's your favorite part? Or have you got quite a few different areas that you just love doing and helping people?
I think for me, it's the strategy and the operations side, but it's also I have a method that intertwines, whether it's a course, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a book that we're working on. And I call it the clear method. So it's where we get clarity. And then we talk about leadership mindset. That's where we do like the vision board and the time blocking and some other self-awareness things. And then it's setting the strategy and creating the repeat income for the business. And I just love the impact that that makes for people personally, but then also within their local communities as well.
And I love that because we all launched the business. And I remember when I launched this, what I couldn't see was the repeat income. I was like, I launched in the pandemic. And of course, my whole plan was to launch a marketing strategy agency that was focused on sales because I was a sales trainer. I had a background in sales, and it's like, yep, I get it, but I want to go a slightly softer approach. Then the pandemic hit, and I remember I had to do a complete pivot and look at my strengths and go, well, I can coach public speaking on camera. And we're all having to do public speaking on camera. So I had to complete 360. And then at the end of the pandemic, I had to do another 360. So, and now I'm back talking about the marketing content and the strategy and the high end stuff. And I'm back to doing what I wanted to do. I wonder if you've got any advice for somebody who maybe, a bit like me, launched the business slightly backwards and needs to adjust and pivot and overcome those kind of struggles.
Yeah, I would say two things. The first one is to be the thoughtful observer and to just take a look at the business for a week or two, at the activities that you're doing and at your clients, at your feedback, at your energy, not like in a woo way, but like in a kind of emotional way, in a financial way, in sort of your own body and yourself. And then look at that and then fast forward like 5 or 10 years and see if you can envision yourself in the same space or not. And it's okay if not, because I think so many of us, like I launched my business, moving from being on benefits to self-employed. And so that journey was in itself a different journey. And now, even as I'm looking at pivoting the business and growing in a different direction, it's from a different point and from a different standpoint and a different energy. And I think to release sort of the old and to embrace the new and to realize that it's okay and giving yourself permission. I'm not sure if you like Brene Brown, but she's one of my favorite authors. And I love one of her ideas. And I think it's either Daring Greatly or Rising Strong. She talks about the idea of giving yourself permission to change and to share and to do. And I think oftentimes as business owners, especially as women, we get caught up in the shoulds of everyday life and the shoulds of where we think we've been with our marketing and our branding and our space. And then it's all right to move into a different space and to be able to acknowledge that and to move forward.
I love it. I read a book by the Barefoot Doctor, who has unfortunately passed away now, and it was called Twisted Fables for Twisted Minds. And it was all about giving yourself permission. And I would honestly, I don't know if it's still in print. I know when I see it and in any shop, I buy it and I give it away because it was life-changing for me. So I would urge everyone to have a look at that because it talks a bit woo-way, but it also twists the woo-way. And it's very clever in the way that it twists it. And it just gives yourself permission. And I do that all the time. I give myself permission to fail. Can I just say, well done to launch self-employed from benefits and do that arch. That is incredible. And I just want to take a moment to go like that. What a brave, powerful woman you are. I love it. I really do. And I love what you do. I really do. I love the fact that I can get to see how you empower women. So if there's somebody who is a little bit lost right now, who's listening to this podcast, what would you say would be the first step for them to come and work with you?
The first step is to book in a coffee chat. So I have a virtual coffee chat for about 15 minutes and where we connect, hear about their business, hear about where they're at. And I always promise to have at least one point of strategy or action to move forward. So it's not a wasted time. And then from there, if they're a good fit to work with me, then we go ahead and talk about what it looks like to do some consulting or to do some one-on-one sort of done for you product development, whether it's a course or a podcast.
And I love the fact that you say you're going to walk away with one bit of strategy. You're going to give them something. So many people are scared to give something away for free. I've had this conversation this week where someone, well, if I give it away for free, they'll have everything. And I'm like, have you seen how much content I give for free? And I wondered if we could just touch on that a minute about overcoming the fear of giving something away for free.
Sure. I did at the beginning. I remember in 2020 when I launched my business in that December and January 2021, my mentor said, just get on the phone with as many people as you can. And then it comes back to you as paper thank yous, getting paid. And in a way, that's how the universe does. That's one of the operational roles. I know it's not very woo to say you get paper thank yous, but in a way, I haven't had to do paid advertising, but I get referrals from people who aren't on social media in other countries. So it works. It really does work to just connect with people. But at the same time, you need to make sure that you are charging for your services and you are getting paid in the business too. So there is a fine balance in that. But I think sometimes we can put up too many barriers and payment walls and payment gateways for things. And because oftentimes if people think that they're getting that much for free, how much are you getting then when you work one-on-one? So
yeah, that's great advice. And if I look at it, the most, and this is something I love, you touched on it. Most of my referrals come from people I know, people who have met me. They may have met me online, but they've met me, they've spoken to me, they understand what I do and how I can change someone's thought process for how they're going to go to market. Very rarely do I get a cold call through a social media channel. And I have a great social media presence, but it's there as my shop front. So I'm really pleased. You talked about the referrals, the getting out there, and I think it's really important that we address that, because everyone seems to think you can launch a business online, which you can. You really, really can. But you've also got to get out there and see people, haven't you?
yeah, you do. And this is the conversation I'm having actually within my own business and then with a few other businesses is, what does a hybrid business look like now? And because like you, I set up my business to be entirely remote and virtual, and that's worked really well. But I'm finding that there's almost a hunger now for in-person events and face-to-face and things like that too. So yes, you can launch a business online, but you need to be very intentional and strategic and focused. And that's the biggest mistake I see lots of people making, is thinking that they need to be on every channel, or they need to be sort of following what the best next bright shiny object thing is, and just photocopying that instead of making it aligned to who they are and who their message is. So.
That's brilliant advice, because it is that, isn't it? It's like, be true to your core, be you. I don't like the word authentic. I really kind of sits uncomfortably on me. Unfortunately, there isn't another word that sums it up better. And so it's kind of become this buzzword about be authentically you, be seen. And but it is about that. It is about showing your vulnerability, not showing your underbelly. It's not about showing everything about yourself, but there is that moment of how much just being you, but trying to do it without authentic. Got any advice on a different word there?
Yeah, so I say to just be your professional you. So I'm not sure about you, but in my last career, I didn't tell my students everything about my life. And the same thing with social media, and the same thing with my shop front, with my clients. Even though it is virtual, it still is a professional space. And I think there's been some self-correction towards that, but there's a lot of power in being your authentic professional self, but not oversharing. And also not, being overly dramatic, because we all have a story. We all have a space. And I think that's good. It's good to share. It's good to have that authenticity. But there's also the danger on the other side of trying to make something go viral and not be real, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Talking to the converted there, I love what you just said. That's probably the best bit of advice I think I've heard in a long time. So yeah, absolutely. Everyone listen to that, because I 100% believe and agree with you on that. This is where the tables turn, and I know that you've got a meeting at 10. So this is where the tables turn, and you get to throw a question at me, because I've put you in the hot seat for a while. So yeah, off you go.
Where do you think online business will go with AI? It's one thing that I've been talking a lot about with people.
So I think AI is a really important tool. I use AI, but I think there is a moment where, even with the online space, if you're not being seen, if it's not you, so where I would say AI is going to has its limitations, rather than where it's online business is going to go, is you've got to have the human element in whoever you are, whatever you're doing. And AI can't, no matter how much they can create a new AI version of you. And I was reading an article yesterday about a model, and she can go out to work because they're going to use the AI version of her, and that's brilliant. But an AI bot will not be authentic, back to that awful buzzword, but it won't be you. It won't get you. In fact, I don't think we can ever replicate the human you. And so I think there will always be this blending of AI. Now, I might be wrong, and this might come and bite me on the backside at some point, but I think AI is very important and you need to embrace it, 100% embrace it. For me, AI is the most powerful tool because I'm dyslexic and dyspraxic. And so AI has speeded up my work process. But if I don't check the AI's grammar, so this is something that I've really learned because I use AI all the time for the grammar. If I don't check it, sometimes it can be absolute gobbledygook. And that's the best word I can come up with. It is twaddle. It is, oh my goodness, it does not make any sense whatsoever. And yet it's telling me it's grammatically correct. And I'm like, yeah, that's not how somebody would say it. And so what I would say is use AI. It's going to push your business forward. It's going to streamline things. It's going to be amazing for you. But just make sure you're still being you and human. So that's where I think there'll be a blending. I don't know about your opinion on it.
That's very close to mine. Actually, I think the power of AI comes when you use it a little bit, but you also use the human element and the human strategy. And I think we're going to see, and we're starting to see it now, almost a backlash against overly automated businesses and impersonal businesses and like the whole Facebook, faceless Instagram account thing, where people want to be seen, they want to know a human, and they want to know that they're talking to one. So
yeah, I think that's brilliant. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you as well for the opportunity.